Aged out, not aged enough. The reality of transition age youth. Each year in the U.S., around 23,000 youth age out of the foster care system. Many of these youth have no permanent relationships with adults who will help them once they are emancipated from care. The outcomes for this population, commonly called transition age youth, are historically some of the worst of any demographic in our society. Many will become homeless, incarcerated, addicted, or even trafficked as they attempt to make it on their own. The problem is not new, but has only drawn government attention for the last 2 decades. Financial assistance for programs to serve this population were put into place in the Chaffee program begun in 1999. Programs have begun to be developed around the country in relation to serving transitional age youth over the last 2 decades, and some research has been done into where they are being done, what they are doing, and what the outcomes are. Most of the funding to work on with these youth comes from the federal government's Chaffee program, but it does not create or run programs, it just funds them. They are created and run at either the state level or by nonprofits. The National Youth and Transition Database was created to track how funding is used and to track trends in services provided and outcomes for the participants in them. We believe that programs that are Christian-led and Christ-focused could provide a more long-term transformational change in the lives of these youth, with faith that creates hope and resiliency that is life-changing, and that the principles of organizational leadership can be used to inform new programs to increase their efficiency. I find that in James 1:27, religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world, as the scripture that drives my passion for working with this group. The research on existing programs was a meta-analysis done on 3 existing programs that provide services for transitional youth. We used both an emic and an etic perspective through existing statistics, case studies, and personal experience working with foster youth. We specifically sought information on the leadership provided in these programs, the motivation, either intrinsic or extrinsic, that the programs created in the youth, and what were the attitudes of the participants once they were finished. Was the leadership transformational? Was it adaptive? Was it an example of servant leadership that would create new servant leaders in the population it served? How were the participants motivated? Were they self-motivated? Was there financial motivation? And if so, how was it used? We looked at 3 different existing program models. The My Life model, which is a 9 to 12-month program provided before youth transition out of care. It is run by Portland area nonprofits since 2012, developed by researchers at the University of Oregon. It provides mentors to assist with planning for transition. This program shows promise in some areas. It has no spiritual context and long-term outcomes are unclear. In the Countdown to 21 program, it was developed by researchers at the University of Illinois and run by the state of Illinois. It provides programming in advance of transition while still in care. It provides a financial incentive of $1,200 if the youth completes the program. We found it to be the least promising program in our study, with negligible long-term effects and no spiritual component. My First Place was the 3rd one we looked at. It was created in California in 1998. It has grown exponentially from one location to many, with an annual budget now of $28 million. Providing housing in 6 different locations in California. Strong leadership that appears both transformational and adaptive in both the upper level management and the youth mentors was evident. The strongest program that we found was the My First Place model. We created a research table, and in doing so found that the My First Place model outscored the other 2 programs in all areas, providing better leadership, creating intrinsic motivation in the youth who participated, and increasing their confidence in their abilities and empowering their self-determination to succeed. Significant findings across the programs were, in the My Life model, youth-directed preparation for transition. Strong mentors were the best part of the program according to the youth. It was run by several different nonprofit groups, so there is an unknown fidelity to programming. It is possibly replicable in other settings. The Countdown to 21 program is run as a state system. It is short-term with no follow-up once youth have aged out. Mentors were a positive part of the program, but not as strong as in the other two programs. Long-term effects were shown to be negligible, and no interest was shown in sharing this program as a replicable model. The My First Place program showed strong leadership on the nonprofit board and in its management, as well as in the mentors that the youth work with. The youth felt empowered and substantially more prepared and confident in their abilities, exhibiting self-direction and growth. The program recognizes the importance of faith-based communities in the lives of the participants, and it is a replicable model in other settings. As far as having real-world application from this study, we used an action research model as defined by Lewin, research that is created to solve a real-world problem using a three-part cycle of investigation, implementation, and reinvestigation. Picardi and Masick says, without this application, the research we conduct is meaningless to practitioners and may contribute to the issue commonly referred to as the science-practice gap. Reason and Bradbury said it is used to produce practical knowledge that is useful to people in the everyday conduct of their lives. We also learned about psychological capital from Skandura and sought to bring this to our study as well. There are a lack of services in rural areas. They are spotty in suburban areas and most available in large urban areas. We also learned that research needs to be done to follow up at intervals further removed from intervention to ascertain long-term results. The My First Place model was the highest scoring and seemed to provide real transformational leadership, resulting in significantly higher rates of success for youth who participated. There is still much need in many areas for this type of intervention. Interventions of this type that include spiritual formation as a core component historically show higher rates of long-term success. Our original hypothesis that there is room for improvement in working with transition-age youth using a Christian model, as well as integrating positive aspects of existing programs we have researched, is substantially confirmed based on the studies we have done. While the issue is large and not everyone can do something to directly affect it, as Christian leaders, we must be willing to take on the difficult issues in our world with the love of God. Thank you.